Today I will be sharing with you on exception handling and logging. To be honest, I have experience in the classic ASP.NET, but I'm still new on .NET Core, and just a few months I'm studying and start to exploring on .NET Core. There are still a lots of things I'm still learning. And for today's session, I mainly share what I know on the exception handling and logging. And if you have a better knowledge on or idea on this area of topics, you are welcome to interrupt in the middle to share with the members what you know about exception handling and logging. So exception handling, why it is very important to a program, because in in the program normally, like everything also have sometimes there are some unexpected error, right? So we maybe we not foresee, or something like network issue or database issue, connection issue, or the input in the invalid input that being uh sending by the user, that were causing some runtimes error. For the runtime error, if we are not handling, it will in the web itself, it will throw out a error that contains some important information that were not nice to like leak out to the user. And for the if you have scheduled programs, and then if you hit this kind of runtime error, it will probably hang there and cannot proceed without your knowledge, or without you aware is that happened. Your program suddenly, your schedule program suddenly hang, and then been some time it did not actually function or process your data. So that's why it is importance on the exception handling part. And logging is like, for example, you want to keep some information in the log. Like, for example, if you have a scheduler program, then you want to know that whether it runs successfully, or how many records being processed, or uh, it, if there is some error where is actually stopped, then you will have you will maybe have a text file or a log file to keep all those information. So that is why exception handling and logging is important. So this I some important points to regarding to the exception handling is it handle the runtime errors. And also if we don't handle exception, it will print exception message and terminate the program. And if we have a good or better exception handling, then we can probably keep the normal flow of the application even there is the runtime error. So any issue on that, or any question?
I'm good.
Okay. So this is the example, maybe more of on the exception handling. So some of it like divide by zero. For example, 9 divide by 0, it will causing the infinity value. So it will cause this divide by 0 exception. And format exception probably is you try to from a string, right? You receive, right? You try to cache it. For example, example, try to cache it in the integer, then may probably you will hit this. And uh, out of memory exception. So like uh, if you are handling a very big files and your program is not able to handling that kind of big files, then you probably hit this error and key not found. Key not found. So maybe you are having a collection or a array, and then you're trying access to the array which the key is not found. Yeah. So this is all the types of exception. So do you all have the experience on the exception handling in .NET or .NET Core? Maybe to the new members, do you have the experience on this? If no, then maybe I can demo to you how it is actually happens. Okay,
Yeah, I think a demo will be nice.
Yes.
okay. So, sorry, this one is the one. So, okay. So, uh, the very basic of concept of exception handling is you putting the try catch finally. So try is the context or the area that you're putting your code. So if anything hitting an error, it will throw an exception like like a basketball field. So if there is an error, it's like a ball, it will throw, and then here is the basket that catch the exception, right? So normally, if you don't really know what is the class of the exception, then you will handle it like as general. I think the concept everyone will already know. Then maybe in Java, in .NET, and even in SQL,
नहीं
the
देखी
store procedure. Yeah, hello. Then you will have this exception. So if you want to like specifically handle a specific exception, then you can write a specific catch on this exception and then handle it. So this is the basic idea, and later on I will go to the .NET Core how they handling on the exception. So this is for the beginners if you don't really have the experience at all on and how it is actually work. So maybe give me not more than 5 minutes to intro this. If there are no exceptions, then your program will just okay. It's like uh I trying to cache this. Okay, so if I put a key, then it will hit the error. Okay, then it will then throw this to the program. Like what is the and normally if you don't capture it this error, then it will every time it will throw it into the windows, or if you skip and then processing a new things, then you don't know what actually happens in the previous this error is not captured. So that's why it's important to have logging to capture this error so that you can check back what actually happens and what is the input value that causing this. And if you handling on this exception, right? So you can manipulate many things like the error message that you want, and then maybe do a logging at here. Yeah. Then finally, uh, catch and finally is the one that even you input the correct one or the wrong one, also it will go to this place to process. So finally, normally you will see in the classic uh, .NET when they try to connect to the database, then in finally it will close all the object, close all the connection and transactions in this area finally. So it's like everything, no matter you have error or no error, you want to process it here, then you can do so. So it will like you see the error will be in very cache exception instead of the error throw in the like just now throw by the system like at system dot number or something and something. So what if you have a you are trying to like processing a file, right? Then you hit error, then you want to handle those error, including the file name, and then in which line of file and in which record actually causing it, then you probably and here you can capture and write it. So any question for the simple uh, explanation on exception handling? Hello. Hello?
Yes, 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 we can hear you.
Yeah. Or everyone confused?
No, I
No,
think that was good.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how about the new member? Is it confused or okay?
So we have a query here from Thomas. He's asking, is this called structured exception handling?
Sorry? Uh,
We have a query from Thomas. He's asking, is this called structured exception handling? The example you were showing previously.
yeah. Uh, okay.
I'll just explain one thing here quickly.
Okay.
See, here we have used multiple catch because we knew what kind of exception my code could throw. Generally, exception is the parent class. So even if I had not used format exception, or before that I might not have used any other, let's say there is an input output exception and anything, then also my exception class would have handled. In general practice, we only use exception. But if I am sure that my type of code right now, what I'm writing here, could throw a specific type of exception, we can handle that. Or I want to perform a different functionality based on the type of exception. Let's say if there's an input output exception, I do not want to show anything to the user, and I just want to move it to the finally block. If there is any server exception, or let's say format exception, I want to add a log. So in that particular cases, for the development end of point of view, you might want to put multiple catch statements and add the logging accordingly. So that's where the multiple catch comes, and that is what is the structured exception handling. In general, though it's a very rare practice that people use a lot of catch statements rules for structuring, they generally use the exception normal class because that's the parent class and it will handle all type of exception. In fact, a very interesting thing I'll tell you in this, if here we change the sequence, we put this catch exception ex line number 33 on above and put catch system.timeout exception below it, even if it's a timeout exception, it will never come in this block because the exception block would have already cached that. So in general, when you do such kind of structured exception handling and you have added multiple catch statements, what we do, we always do it from the child one, so that the child exception is the
Mm.
first one, so that if it comes, it repeats in that. If you put the parent on the top, the child block will never be executed. I hope this answers your query.
Yeah, it's like if you have a function, uh, so if you're putting this thing here and calling from here, and then your try. So if you have a try catch here, so it will be handling on here. So if not, it will throw back to the parents to handle on it. Can understand, right? Hmm? So any more question? If no, I can proceed.
Yes. Yeah, Thomas is asking something. Will the child have specific info? Wondering if the example should demonstrate specific info.
Yeah, specific. Okay. So maybe let's try.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I think I calling the wrong thing. So it will be handled by the child unless you throw. So
Parent.
you throw to the parents, like for example,
Yeah.
the child catch the ball and cannot handle it, or is not the one that he his parent already have the general handling which is suitable, so it will throw. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is the simple idea. Then we will moving to the .NET core that uh, and I can share to you later on on some of this information that I found is useful, but I might not explain to all to you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the exception handling. There is many different kind of technique for .NET Core, like for example, the middleware, and also the exception filters, which is like using the service and then at the at the startup dot programs that you configure your service and to handling the filter. And middleware is you create a class, a new middleware to actually handling the exception. Okay, so later on you can have a look on it. It's a quite good explanation
So,
at
sorry to
here.
interrupt, Shri. Thomas has one more point. Let me just clarify that.
Okay.
Uh, yes, Thomas, exception is generic. What you're trying to say, we have different types of exceptions. Like, as we say
Yeah,
that there
yeah.
could be input type exception, there could be formatting exception, there could be argument exception. But it is in general of this. When you say parent and child, like in the previous example, what we were trying to show that we have, and that was not actually parent and child, it was inner functions. Parent and child concept comes when we have inheritance in place. So when inheritance is in place or when you are calling different function based upon how you have placed your try and catches. Let's say my child a function does not have, or the internal function does not have a try and catch, but my parent does have an internal, the main function has the try and catch block. If even if there is an issue, there is an exception in the child function functionality, the parent function's catch will catch that. So this is how it happens, that if, because it is internally happening inside the main function only. So what will actually be happening, what will be showing, what you will be doing, whatever you are doing in the catch statement, it depends on how you have placed your catch statements. If you have placed it in every function or you are placing it only in your main function, it depends upon that.
Yeah.
Please continue, Cherry.
Huh? Sorry.
Please continue. Please continue.
Stop my sharing. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, you can hear us?
Yes.
Yes,
Not
please
so
continue.
clear.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
you want to share something?
No, Lika, you
I'm
can
done.
continue.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And then yeah. So it's like if you are using object oriented, then yeah, just now Priyanka has explained that your exception handling, if you in the base class, right? If your base class is handling on it, then it will not go to parents. But if your parents have the handling, then it will go to the parents. So you can in the parent class there actually you or the the main class, the parent class, you do all these exception handling, that you will the rest of the children will also implement the same. Okay, then okay, so you can have a look on this code. So this code is global exception handler in .NET Core, and that are different kind of it. Then in this part it will explain the exception handler, and then after that it will explain the middleware exception component, and also exception filter and try catch throw best practices. Okay, and then if you are using uh, the .NET Core interface accept exception handler features, right? There is a class that you you can create to handle all the exception, and then it will customize the response of the handling. So, like for example, this one is to run the arrows, and then it will hit this internal server arrows, and then it will log it out. So it's using the handler to handling. Okay. And then normally, when you try to create a .NET Core program, right? In the startup, you will normally see this configuration that you can configure. For example, if is in development, when you are debugging, then this is your exception page. And if you are using you are deploying to the production environment, then you definitely don't want the very detailed information go to your user, right? Then you can, or you want to specifically log it out, then you can, it will call this function, this handler, which you have created to handling this your production error. Okay. Using middleware exception component. This one later I can show you the information, example of source code of doing it. And exception filter is the next one. So exception filter is another technique of handling exception, but some will prefers middleware if compared to exception filter, because uh, I I read on some site is saying that the exception filter is not able to handling the middleware exception. So I still figuring it out. So today I still cannot share with you. So this is the kind of code, but I downloaded, but having some issue. I will try it out first. Uh, okay. So how it is being in implement. So maybe I read this out. Using exception, the good technique, the only delivery is effective only to API pipeline. Okay. If there is an exception in other layer of your application apart from API, this approach won't be useful. So just be careful of using this exception filter unless you are mainly developing the API. Then if this is uh, convenience, then you can use it. But maybe middleware is a better solution. Cache of code in the middleware. Yeah. So I think it got mentioned also. It will not handling those middleware like you calling, you have the third party services, then it won't handle that. Okay. So below are the example of handling the synchronous and asynchronous action. Yeah. then here you derive your exception filter interface and implement on exception.
Cherry, could you zoom your screen a little?
Okay, can see.
Yeah, yeah, this is much better.
Yeah, okay. So you have the filter is one of the .NET Core topic, and then there is one is exception filter. Then yeah, this is the one if you have error, then you are handling on it. Then you in the configure service, you add one filter to handling this exception. So the okay, so this is the filter exception which you implement this uh interface and yeah handling it, then you add it up into configure services. And there is another part of the middleware section which might be more applicable to you is I think this one. So middleware, what is actually different is like you are configure you are adding a middleware of the exception handling. Okay. Just now you are configure it at here you are adding a filter. Then here you are adding a middleware to handling it. And then in your controller, so you have a specific you create a specific handling on this, so it inherit the exception in class. So your middleware can actually handling it. Right, maybe we go through one by one. If it is being hit, it, this is the one that will handle your context. But it uh if if there is error, right, that it will handling it here. And then it get the types of the exception. If the type is equal to the bad request exception, this one, then you will set this to this message to this exception, this status to this one, and then after that you are sending back in the JSON format. Okay. So if uh, server Okay. So if you are in the development, then you will show the status. If not, it will just show the status. And the error without like status trace is just now you see like at somewhere system blah 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 the several line of uh, error details will not show that. Okay. So if you are not in development, then it will not show here. This is you create a new JSON that contains of error message. This one, the status code, and then you send back to the user the error message. Okay, so yeah, this is the example of API that we are having, and then later it will throw some error. Yeah. So this is the API to get the stock information, right? So let's say so it will be handling here. If any exception, then it will be handling at here. Okay. So let's say if stock, this is the API that we are processing. Then if the stock is not now, if then if is now, if not found, then it will throw this exception. Okay. So this one is found, right? So if I type something like more validation error, status code, trace ID. So this is the one that it will be handling. Okay. Maybe try again. So Okay. We
I think here we are not reaching into the exception area, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Maybe we need to find out that
Uh,
we do get
uh,
like how to use it, right?
yeah. Think it should. Maybe something is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, mm, so,
Okay, so honestly, from my end, I think this portion we all need to maybe read ourselves one and then go through, because I did understood the general part, but how to implement into .NET Core, I think I'm also I'm not that way clear on that. So maybe once I go through the material, like, I'll be able to understand, and then in the
okay,
next class I could, or on the WhatsApp group, if after reading the material I do not get it, I'll ping questions, and others who have done, they can respond back if I have more queries. I think for others also they can do the same, because I know this is new. We know what is and how to handle exception, but we don't know how exactly, what is the syntax, or what are the classes we need to add for doing it into .NET Core. So probably we need to go through the videos ourselves once, and then it will make much more clear idea.